I don't trust all these cloud services. You know, I've been using these cloud services, but I just have had enough.
You mean like Dropbox and like that?
And iCloud and all that.
Yeah.
And I really just want all my files in one central location, but I have absolutely no trust in these cloud services. Dropbox is recently broken into. They're so ephemeral. They're making you change your passwords. If you go away for 6 months on a cruise, you come back and say, well, is everything going to be still there? You know, they're just not trustworthy. So I really want my own cloud device, probably at my home, but has very secure offsite backups, some sort of web access, very, very reliable, a RAID device or something like that, but essentially my own cloud device. I've got Time Machine and Time Capsule, but that's not very good because every 6 months it says the backup is corrupt. It's like, oh, well, that's good.
I do this. You came to the right place because I actually do this, and kind of the same thing. I was a little worried after all these breaches. Now, you've got a commercial service that is secure.
SpiderOak, yeah, as recommended by Edward Snowden. So SpiderOak is actually, they're encrypted. It's encrypted in such a way that SpiderOak themselves can't decrypt it. So it's entirely down to you to remember your password.
That's the key, is trust no one encryption, right?
Exactly.
And Steve Gibson says, for instance, if you're going to use Dropbox, that's fine. If you encrypt it on your computer and then upload it to Dropbox, then they can't unencrypt it. SpiderOak kind of works that way. The last time I used it, I had a Java client I wasn't crazy about.
Yeah.
I think they have native clients now.
Yeah, and they're improving the service, but I mean, it's one of those things where you just don't want to dump, as you rightly point out, there have been many cloud firm break-ins, and you don't want to be dumping unencrypted data on there that anybody can scoop up, particularly, as you say, if you're looking to get all your personal data into a particular service, so be really careful about that.
But Michael does have a reasonable concern. What if they go out of business?
Yeah.
And you're right, even Google, even Apple, you can't be sure that 10 years from now that's going to be safe. So I do what you talked about. I run my own cloud storage solution, and there's a number of ways to do this. There is an open source solution that is for the true geek. And it's called, well, it was originally called OwnCloud, and then there was a schism, and the developers of OwnCloud left and started NextCloud. And actually, I don't think it matters which you use. They're compatible, and they're very much like Dropbox. There are OwnCloud/NextCloud clients for every platform, iOS, Android. So it works in the same way Dropbox does, but instead of being on somebody else's hard drive, you're on a hard drive at home.
Interesting.
You can even install it on, say, using FreeNAS or FreeBSD on a ZFS-based server. And then you also have data integrity, because ZFS does two very important things. One, it makes sure that data is not corrupted. It uses a checksum at all times. But like a lot of cow systems, it also has ability to snapshot and restore. And if data corruption happens, it's remarkable, really. It will automate. It's a modern operating system. So running, I think, NextCloud on a ZFS system would be a great way to go. Now, that's one thing. And you know, I have a NextCloud server, but here's one problem. Since I set it up, I forgot the password. So
this is why you always write your passwords down and hide them in inaccessible places.
I have to go home now because I own the server. Obviously, I can log in onto the server. I could probably SSH into the server as well. So if you're kind of a geek and you're used to managing your own servers, you're willing to buy dedicated hardware, your internet service provider doesn't forbid it. This is important, and I don't know what it's like with Telstra or whoever you have in Australia. But here in the United States, I had to buy a Comcast business account and pay extra for a dedicated static IP address in order to do this. And so that, because it says in the terms of service, you may not run a server on a Comcast consumer account. So a lot of ISPs prevent this on consumer grade accounts. Depends on your ISP, you could inquire. There are ways around the static IP address, and this is another solution that is a lot easier to set up and I really like, called Sandstorm, sandstorm.io. If you're interested, another open source solution. Sandstorm is more than just cloud storage. The idea is it's cloud services. So you can even get the kind of services you might get from Google, like shared editing, or you could create your own Git server on this. Each one of these is called an app. The downside is you can only use apps that have been modified to work on Sandstorm. They use Angular.js, so it's not so hard to port, but they do have to be ported. You also, and there's quite a few files storage solutions. I use one called Davros, D-A-V-R-O-S, that is OwnCloud compatible. So I can use an OwnCloud client on my phone to share the data. This is what my Sandstorm server looks like. I'm on it right now.
Davros.
Isn't that an interesting name?
Someone's a Doctor Who fan.
Yeah. So I have a couple of Davros. I use a GitLab, which is a GitHub, a Git service like GitHub, to store my dot files. For instance, dot files are a good example of files you probably don't want to store on a public server because it has, I don't know why it's so slow. My server's a little slow right now. Because it has, personal information like passwords.
Sounds probably gaming at the moment. Yeah.
I also use Davros to share sound files with the radio stations that I work with. These are all called grains. And what's neat about Sandstorm, it has additional encryption built in. So it has very good, strong encryption built into Sandstorm. So even if somebody were to steal my server from my house,
your data's still safe.
My data is absolutely intact. And Sandstorm provides, through the sandcats.io site, HTTPS. You don't have to have an SSL certificate. You could buy one if you wanted. You'd need a wildcard cert. Those are expensive. But I am, if you look here, by going through sandcats.io, I am on an HTTPS secure client. So it's encrypted in place and encrypted in transport. You could have a WordPress blog. There's wikis. I'm using Etherpad. You could use that as a collaborative document service. I have Evernote's another example, something you might want to replace. I have an Evernote replacement notebook. You can even store music on here and play it back. I'm not sure what's going on.
No, come on. The RIAA will come after you. Just not even thinking about that.
It's a little slow right there. We go. So I've stored some music on here, and I can actually stream it directly from my Sandstorm server. This is coming off of a Linux box in my house. So Nextcloud or OwnCloud running on FreeNAS or maybe FreeBSD with ZFS would be the kind of like the super pro way to do it. Really powerful, really good. If you've been a sysadmin or you're comfortable with Unix, that would be the ideal way to go. A little bit easier to set up Sandstorm, and I've actually been thrilled with the capabilities of it. Not quite as powerful, but certainly secure.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple of really good solutions. And then most people, there are really disadvantages to having your own server. Like I said, you have to get the cooperation of your ISP. You have to worry about IP
and
addresses.
Also, what happens if your house burns down?
What happens if your house burns down? Stuff like that.
Always think about the worst thing.
Well, OwnCloud and Nextcloud, you can have synchronization. You can use rsync to synchronize with work. There's all sorts. If you really want to get sophisticated, you can run something easily as sophisticated as Dropbox, maybe even more so. The nice thing about OwnCloud is that as an open standard, and so there are a number of clients available on Android, iOS, and elsewhere that work with it. So that's nice. It gives you lots of synchronization capability. You have to do everything in the web with Sandcats, but everything has a web browser, so that's not too big a deal. All right. Any questions, Michael?
That's fantastic. I didn't realize it was so available. I was been looking around. I hadn't heard these solutions.
Yeah.
I didn't think the problem had been solved, but clearly.
Oh, it's very solved because you're not alone. Yeah. Everybody's a little worried about this. And I finally, a couple of months ago, said, you know what? I really need to set up some of these servers and have my own running just in case. I was very worried about here in the United States government spying, but also just can I trust these companies with my data?
There's a reason why a lot of the secure data firms are setting up in Switzerland now because they have very strong data protection
and I think
rules.
Spider Oak is in Switzerland. I think,
but also the Black Phone, they're based in Switzerland. They base their servers in Switzerland and Canada for just that reason.
Silent Circle.
Silent Circle.
Good luck.
Nice
to talk to you. You're in a beautiful part of the world.
Well, thank you very much. I have to come to your new studio one day.
Good. I'll have to come to your house one day. It looks like you've got a...
That is a fantastic view.
Yeah, that's pretty nice, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Cheers, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.